So after we get the putty down, and we want to start going to put our ground cover down, what do we use? Well, what I like to do is just buy the pre-made mixes from different companies. Unfortunately, the only one I have right now is from Asset Drop, which is their Baseworks line. So the one I use the most from them would be the English Woodland. It's got some of the green leaves in there, along with sticks and dirt and soil, and just a general nice overall base to use, kind of agnostic of the setting that the mini is supposed to be in, the environment anyway. They also have this cool Badlands scattered. It's got, looks like torn or blended up cork bits in there, again with more foliage and leaves, and it's still got soil, so if you mix it up really nice and sprinkle it on there, you're going to have small bits and big bits all mixed together. Then when you glue it down, it'll fit nicely. You can also crush this up some more if you really wanted to. Like, that's a fairly large chunk for me to put on a 28mm base, but you know, it's user's choice. They also have this nice ocean floor basing mix. I bought a couple bags of this because I live in Arizona. We don't really have fine sand out here, but we have lots of dirt. We don't have fine soil either, unless you want to go to the hardware store and buy it, which is an option. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is nice. I added some little amethyst crystals into it. They're really hard to see here, but you know, I figured it'd give it some more variation. There was already the pink kind of bits in there. This has got a lot of variety in it to kind of draw the eye and blend everything together. Then they've also got this Secret Grove basing scatter, which I haven't used it yet. It looks like it's got some moss in there with looks like colored glass and cork. They gave this out for their the monthly box that had the Moonstone models in there from the Moonstone game, which they're all amazing models. I bought a bunch of them outside of the Asset Drop box, so I was really happy when I got one of the models in with some of this, which is kind of neat. So what if you don't have, you know, pre-made mixes? Well, you can make your own. The easiest way that I found to do that is using tea. So here I have jasmine tea. It's loose, so it didn't come in a bag, and it's got these like large, you know, little chunks. They look like vines or maybe fallen tree branches or something. This is really great. So I'm going to dump that into this little container I've got of other tea. Another kind of tea that I use. This is what is this? This is barley tea. So you know, you just take a bag, you open it up, and inside you've got this cool looking dirt, basically. I mean, I know it's tea, but it looks like dirt with rocks and stuff already in it. So you know, you can add that in. So you got a big old bag here, and then you can mix it up. I've also got another bag here of Yorkshire biscuit tea. You probably heard of this if you watch Luke's APS on YouTube. He talks about it frequently. This is a very fine like grain. I don't know exactly what's in it. It smells nice, but it's very much like a soil. So, you know, I can put this in here and then take, you know, any implement of mixing, but I'll just use this sculpting tool, and you mix it up nicely, and you end up getting a good base for ground cover on the ground for your models. You can add more or less of each kind. I would probably add more of the Yorkshire biscuit tea in here, just because, you know, there's more large pieces than fine pieces, but you can also go outside and just fill in that with dirt, and it works also just as fine. So, and it smells nice, sort of. Yeah, but it works great for basing. You know, you put this down, you use your Scenic modeling glue on it, homemade or store-bought, either way, and it will it'll adhere to the base really well and look like, you know, whatever you want. And if you need to change the color, you use washes on it, you can paint it, whatever. One more thing you can also do is buy these happyseppuku.com molds. They've got leaves and roots and little pockets for water and stuff in there. This is grassland. Creek bed has a bunch of stones in it. It looks like it's got some wood or water. And then there's also a forest floor. They've got a bunch of these. You basically just roll out some milliput or green stuff or epoxy sculpt, and you press it down on top of your base, and there you go. You're good to It creates texture for you and stuff like that. Sometimes it won't be so well defined. I recommend spraying or rubbing in some Vaseline on this to make sure it doesn't stick permanently. But you know, if you're careful afterwards, you can just scoop out any bits that get stuck in there. But these are like a nice cheap alternative for making, you know, pre-made bases on you know, like a base like this, for example. You'd put the milliput or the putty there, and then you just, you know, push this into it really nice. But it's just another option. So on top of that, other things you could use are just rocks that you find outside. So here I've got just stones from my front yard. Now I've also used these with green stuff and milliput to add texture. But you know, you can break these up into little pieces. You can use beads from, you know, the craft store or whatnot, the dollar store. You can use actual gems. So I've got turquoise, carnelian, citrine, looks like moonstone, and peridot. So I've got these. I live in Arizona, so there's a lot of gem and mineral shows, and you can get these there or at museums. I think I've got those in Bisbee, Arizona, at one of their museums. Still more options for crystals, at least, or even ice. This is resin. It's UV cured resin. I took a piece of aluminum foil and I folded it over a couple times to make a square, and I crumpled it up into a ball, and then I uncrumpled it carefully so it doesn't rip. I rubbed some Vaseline into it, although you could probably spray like a cooking spray in there if you wanted to, or you know, super glue instant set may also work. I don't know how it chemically reacts to resin, but I know it is slippery. Anyway, you pour the resin in there, and then you just hit it with a UV flashlight you can buy at the hardware store, and it cures up real nicely. I did that for this, and then here's 2 more pieces. This is a little more cloudy. It was my first time trying it, and I think I may have used a different surfactant or whatever in the mold. But you know, either way, it's nice. You know, if you put a wash on it, nobody's gonna notice. So, and it's good and hard too. It's not gonna shatter very much. This stuff is cool. It's crackle paint. I got this from Amazon. I cannot recall the manufacturer of it, but when you paint this onto your bases, it will crack over time as it dries, and it doesn't take very long. You're talking a couple hours at most, I think. But I poured this into a medicine cup to get these really fine, super clear crystals here. So this is very awesome. I haven't really found a big use for it yet because it does yellow. But if you're going to airbrush like a glaze or just going to paint a wash over them, then I don't suppose it would really matter too much as long as you built your base entirely out of this. However, I will warn you that if the thicker it goes on, or the thicker you've got it, like, you know, say in a medicine cup like I did, it does take a long time to dry. I want to say I had to leave mine in there for about a month before I went back and noticed that it was fully, you know, it was fully cured and there were cracks all in it. And I popped it out of the cup, and you know, I've got all these pieces now. There's more in a bucket next to me, but you know, this is all I was really gonna dig out for the video. But it's really cool. It's interesting. I haven't seen a lot of people mention it before, but it's really nice ice/crystal effect. So, yeah. Other things you can do, you can use leaf scatter. So these are from Huge Minis, I think, anyway. I've got the Autumn Blend and the, I guess, Summer Blend. I'm not exactly sure what this one is called. There's no label on them. But these are fantastic. You've seen this one, especially in a lot of my bases. So that works great. They've also got flocking over at Huge Miniatures. It's pretty cool. It's loose foliage. I've used this to make cherry blossom trees before, and it worked fantastic. You just get some spray glue and spray that on your branches, and then dribble that on top of it, or put it into a bowl and dip it, whichever way you want. And so they're very nice, vibrant colors. I like these a lot. I haven't used them a whole lot. Obviously, the bags are still full, but I do have ideas for projects that I want to use them on. There's also things like, you know, to go back to the Asset Works line, I mentioned that I bought the ocean basing stuff. They also have a lot of this coastal lichen. So I bought a lot of that too. You can pick stuff like this up over at Joann's, let's see, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, other like hobby stores. They have a lot of moss and vines and whatnot. I've also got static grass. So from Shadow's Edge Miniatures, I tend to like these. I like the dry grass and like the summer grass. So it's like a mix of, you know, yellows and greens that are in there. I also like their snow. It's not heavy snow, it's light snow, but it's just enough to sell like, okay, winter came through here. And if I need more than that, I can make my own snow. Asset Drop also has some cool grass tufts. I've got some spooky grass tufts from them. They have like various colors, and it's like dark bluish purple grass. I've got their mossy tufts, which have this nice little moss foliage on top of the grass tuft itself, and there's flowers over on these. And then I got these cool Asian flower tufts that are just, you know, pinks and blues and purples and different shades. So they go really well with, you know, some of the other flocking I showed earlier. So on top of that, what if you don't have leaves? Well, with leaves you can even make your own, and I have done that. So my preferred method is to use coffee filters, not white paper, and you get something like a leaf punch. Green Stuff World sells those. This I want to say is a maple leaf punch, but unless you've got a plant scientist inspecting your work, I doubt anybody's going to care that the leaf doesn't match the tree. So if you use white paper in here for the leaf punch, the problem is you're going to have white edges. However, if you use a coffee filter and mix up some water and some ink, you know, like a Liquitex ink, like, you know, burnt umber would make a nice autumn color, or raw sienna, things like that. Anyway, you do that and you let it dry after you know, dab it in different spots all over a coffee filter, and then you could just hole punch the coffee filter, and so you end up with these cool sort of cherry blossom tree leaves. If you wanted something smaller than the foliage that you can buy from retailers and whatnot. So these are all great options as far as things to base your model with. You can get things like, I've got beads here from Walmart, with apparently I put a rock in there for some reason. You've also got things like these cogs. There's like it's even labeled steampunk. I've only got a couple plans for a few of these, but you know, I've got a whole box of them if I need them. So if I ever need to make a steampunk kind of like setting for a bunch of models, here we go. There's a lot of small ones back in there too. They would fit great on bases like this. So, you know, but it's just a huge wide variety. And whatever you don't use, you know, make necklaces or something out of. It doesn't really matter. So that's it for ground cover and for a lot of like what you put on there. One more thing that I like to use is vines. I got this from, I think, Michael's. I got a tip from Cindy Heaton from Cindy's painting studio to use wood chips for bases. So I bought a bag of these. I got them from the hardware store in the meat smoking section. There's also fake plants. You can just tear them into little bits and put them on bases. You've seen this on some of my Rocky models from Reaper. There's also different mosses. So I don't really use these too often because they're scented and it gives me a headache. But if you find the unscented ones, you're probably going to be better off than I am. There's, I think it's grape wood. You can buy this at pet stores. It just comes in a little bag. And along with that, you know, you have like natural cork bark that you can get at reptile stores too. This makes fantastic rock walls. You just kind of set it up on its side, prime it, paint it. If it's got fungus on it, you may want to go ahead and bake it for a little while. Although the temperature, I couldn't tell you what that is because I've never had to do it myself. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything you want to put on the ground on a base or diorama or whatever. There's not much more than I ever use other than that. Unless we're talking resin or snow, which we'll get into that later when I actually do those bases, because I have a winter base and an acid base coming up. So stay tuned for that.